afternoon. Thank you for joining us on the Sicko Show here live on Graps TV. I'm your host, the Matty Man. I'm going to tell you something right now. The weather we've had here in North Carolina is something to admire. I am not even kidding right now. We got round two coming in this afternoon, so if I get knocked off the stream, well, you know what? That's just how life goes, and I'll be back as soon as the utilities are up and running. So hope everybody's having a great day so far. Yeah. So we're trying to get through the day here just a little bit at a time. Talked to my lovely wife earlier, and she's on the verge of getting a job. So, like, if you could send some well wishes and thoughts her way, I would definitely appreciate that a lot. And before we get into anything here now, we've got a couple of new segments we're going to add to the show, and I'm getting ready to try this right now. So we're going to kick right into the news. The news is, give me just 1 second. Everything's getting ready to goof up right when I need it. Let's see here. All right, so I got everything set up here. We're going to start off with the news. And it's going to be today's news. And then during the discussion of Mariah May and Viva Van's match, I've got a really short flower shop clip I'm going to play. Excuse me, it's just been one of those days today. But anyway, what we're going to do right now is we're going to kick off with the news, and I'll be right back just as soon as the news is finished playing. And so here we go. Let's try it out. And if it's not playing, say something in the chat after it's all over with. I don't really have a way to monitor it from here except to see that it goes through and I'm timing it. So that's the best way I've got to work with it. So if you don't mind, just indulge me a little bit, because if this works, we're going to be adding some other stuff into the show here as we go. So I hope you enjoy it, and we'll be right back right after the news. Good morning. Welcome to the news here with Graps TV. And All Elite Wrestling, Kota Ibushi reaffirms AEW as his home and teases a reunion with Kenny Omega. Jack Perry's AEW Dynamite promo last night was unexpectedly interrupted by a Taco Bell commercial, making for a viral moment all over Twitter and all other social media. In WWE news, both Seth Rollins and Dakota Kai are officially really injured and were written off of television due to real-life injuries. Former WWE champion Jinder Mahal joins the revival of the iconic 80s wrestling promotion Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, and actually that's something to be discussed there. Apparently that's the new project for Scott D'Amore. I saw a tweet from Will Ospreay today saying that we should support that, so I figured I'd throw that in there as well. Scott D'Amore is associated with Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. Definitely one that we want to support, absolutely. TNA Bound for Glory details to be revealed during TNA Impact tonight. Joe Henry versus Wolfgang and Ultimate X qualifiers are set up for TNA Impact tonight. That's a show you're not going to want to miss. In New Japan Pro Wrestling, Zack Sabre Jr. takes the lead in the New Japan Pro Wrestling G1 Climax 34 A Block. Night 13 of New Japan G1 Climax 34 featured Zack Sabre Jr. and Gabe Kidd and Shingo Takagi versus Evil. In the Ohio Valley Wrestling weekly television tapings begin again, featuring your favorite stars in the Davis Arena. Apparently the Davis Arena is open and ready for business. In Game Changer Wrestling, Game Changer Wrestling plans to hold an event in the American Dream Mall in New Jersey. Matt Hardy is set to make his GCW debut against Nick Cage. In AAA Wrestling, Matt Riddle is heading to AAA to compete in Triple Mania 32 in Mexico City. Fabi Apache versus Flammer. Psycho Circus added to Domo de Muerto. More set for a AAA Triple Mania. Boy, that's a tongue twister. Blah, 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 blah. Anna Jay is announced as a mystery participant in the 2024 Stardom 5-Star Grand Prix. In Marigold, apparently Gilia has an injury after her recent Marigold match. That's going to be interesting for WWE. Marigold Summer Gold Shine 2024 results are available on their website. You can go to Marigold to see those. CMLL news. Tessa Blanchard and Luvia win the vacant CMLL World Tag Team Championships. MJF looks forward to competing in CMLL Vietnamese Spectacular event. And that concludes all the news around the wrestling world right now. We'll have some news here. Hang on a minute. Let me check one more source before we get done. I want to make sure I check it all to make sure we've got the news in. Bear with me here. In other wrestling news, Thursday, today at 8 p.m., Brad Hollister versus Brother Greatness. This is Wrestling Open episode 136. Brad Hollister versus Brother Greatness. Ali Catch is going to be wrestling JC Storm. Bobby Orlando versus Gal. Swipe Right versus Team BioPro. At 9 p.m., the Texas Contender Series, Series 40. We're going to have No Holds Barred Jay Davis versus Kyla Cash. KC Krem versus Kenny Calypso. Dustin Nugent versus Ali Summers. Team Pac versus Team Jack. And then Friday at SOS Pro Wrestling, SOS Pro Wrestling presents Without a Paddle. SOS Pro Wrestling champion Derek Jaws versus KC Cat Rasselhoff. Island Rules Championship Counselor Coleman versus Sue Young. Ethan Rivers versus Ethan Hart HD. Matt Brannigan versus Sticky Ricky. The Graveyard Shift versus Carl Randers and Troy Maddock. Drake Quan versus Tommy the Tank. And on Saturday at 8 p.m., New Texas Pro Wrestling presents Ram Jam. The New Texas Pro Champion Stephen Wolf versus Danny Orion. The Lone Star Champion Diego De La Cruz versus Max Heights. The San Angelo Street Fight between Jack Calloway versus Pac Ortega. Charity King versus Hyan. The Dream Team and Isaac Morales versus Just X Vibin. And the Sheriff. Those will all be available as well, and that is definitely all your news in the world of independent and professional wrestling. Have a great rest of your day. And we're back. Let me know if that came through okay. I appreciate it. Give me just 1 second here. Alrighty. So let's get into it, guys. What did you think of the show last night? Just drop a comment, like, share, and comment for me if you would. The show opened up with MJF making his way to the ring for his American title eliminator against Kyle Fletcher. The champ immediately started playing mind games. In case you didn't notice, that wasn't to waste time. When MJF rolled out of the ring and so on and so forth, that's actually supposed to be ring psychology, and it seemed to be working. But Fletcher didn't seem to be phased. In fact, he took control as soon as his opponent got back into the ring. The former ROH TV champion Kyle Fletcher soon found himself dealing with some of MJF's trademark dirty tactics, and so he eventually ended up on defense. With his arm the focus of the champ's attacks, the former world champion called his opponent a wannabe Will Ospreay. So Fletcher used this one good arm to unload on him. Don Callis gave him a screwdriver behind the ref's back, but Fletcher refused to use it and left an opening for MJF to hit a low blow. And as we got into it there, the referee's attention was distracted. MJF then utilized the low blow to to me, it kind of turned the tide of the match, and it was typical MJF heel stuff. And by the way, the crowd in Winston-Salem was electric, exactly like I knew they would be. They were killing it. Shout out to the crowd out there. Where am I at with this thing here? Okay, yeah, we're not doing too bad here, but shout out to the crowd there. And, yeah. Don Callis gave him a screwdriver behind the ref's back. Fletcher refused to use it. And, of course, you know, MJF utilized the low blow with the kick. He actually was able to pull it off, unlike some other people. I'm not calling out any names, Loa. These are two of AEW's best, and both are still under the age of 30. That is something to remember. These are actually young talent. They're still in their 20s and so on and so forth. MJF then got a hold of his diamond ring out of the belt and knocked and hit. I'm sorry. I am way ahead of myself. A couple of the highlights of the match, I apologize, guys. I get a little tongue-tied. There was a little bit of wind blowing the building around here. So, yeah, we are in the middle of a tropical storm right at the moment. I just decided I would go ahead and stream anyway. I appreciate it. Highlights of the match were MJF's shoulder breaker was about as well executed as it gets. Fletcher did a good job of staying upright. And just so you know, biting is one of those heel moves that only makes sense for some villains. It's not something MJF needs to do to get heat, but he did it anyway. The way Fletcher sold some of those bumps was absolutely awesome. The cradle DDT MJF, the cradle DDT for MJF looked especially good. MJF's kick out of the pile driver is about as close as it gets. I mean, they almost had it. It was a back and forth. It was a really good back and forth. After it was all, you know, MJF picked up the win, though, and after it was all over with, MJF knocked the ref out with the belt, while Ospreay in the back was struggling to get out of his locker room because somebody put all the ring gear in front of his door, and here we are again. Put all the ring gear in front of his door, so here we are. And so, yeah, as Ospreay finally breaks through the door, MJF is just waylaying on Fletcher down there. After he's taken the title, he knocked the ref out. It was really good heel run. But, yeah, in the end, MJF defeated Fletcher and got a good promo off there. And, you know, Kyle Fletcher came out of this thing looking 100% good. The spot in the crowd, Tony, I'm just going to say this right now, do more of that. Get the crowd involved, especially, I mean, you've got athletes in there that absolutely know how to turn it up and so on and so forth. Let them turn it up. Let them be them. That spot for Kyle Fletcher has got at least 1 million views by now. And that's not a joke. But anyway, we get back to the ring here, and we get, oh my goodness, we get Mariah May and Viva Vaughn. And so with that, I have one more that I'm going to throw in here. And we're going to go from there and see. As you're still watching the live stream here, I wanted to take a moment to do a quick flower shop on Viva Van and give you a wrestling profile. I will not give her real name out. Her ring name is, of course, Viva Van. Her notable achievements are she is the first professional female wrestler of Vietnamese American descent. She did a fundraiser for Vietnam Pro Wrestling's first wrestling ring. Her wrestling debut came in Hood Slam at Glam in January 19th against Lady K. She was in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood in February of 2019 with Heather Monroe. Rise Wrestling in May of 2019 where she defeated Auntie Heidi. Expo Lucha, she debuted in August of 2019, teamed with Shotzi, you may know her, and Taya Valkyrie, you may know her as well. Impact Wrestling, March 8th, 2019, faced Jessica Havoc. Future Stars of Wrestling, April 2021 against Australia. Mission Pro Wrestling, May 2021 in a triple threat match. She's had a dark match in AEW with Chris Statlander. She's also had a match with Toni Storm. Her finishing moves are the Code Red, the Running Tornado DDT, and the Hellbent Lock. Her signature moves are the Vendetta Heel Kick, the Viva Roundhouse Sweep, and a Tarantula. Her nickname is the Hellbent Vixen. She is currently in a stable called the War Beast. Her championships and accomplishments: AWF Women's Championship twice, VMW Women's Championship once. She's been in the top 150 in PWI's top 150 females, number 50 in 2022, 68 in 2023. Let me make sure I got all those titles in there. Yeah, I do. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had all the title stuff. Viva Van has made a significant impact in the wrestling world with her dynamic in-ring style and her contributions outside the ring. Her journey from debuting into various promotions to achieving championship gold is a testament to her dedication and skill in professional wrestling. It's also notable to mention that she was live tonight against Mariah May. And of course, you're going to get the results later on here on the Sicko Show. Thank you for watching, and I'll take you back to your show now. And we're back. All right. Mariah May had a match this week against Viva Vaughn, who had been wrestling since 2019 and worked for several promotions. May drilled her with a headbutt to immediately take Van down and gain control, and what could have been a squash match but wasn't, lasted all the way through a commercial break, so Van had an opportunity to get some offense in. This was a solid performance, but it was never about making Van look good. It was about making May look good. For those of you who don't understand how AEW tells stories, they have gradually started working their way into storytelling with some vignettes and promos and so on and so forth, but traditionally AEW tells all their stories in the ring, so this really was a build-up for Mariah May. It was a good good introduction for Viva Vaughn, let me jump out here on a limb real quick. Tony Khan, I hope you did not let Viva get out of the building without talking to her about money. Now, it was my understanding before the match that Vaughn was under contract with AEW, and come to find out she is indeed not under contract. So she was a brought-in talent as enhancement for Mariah May. And Tony Khan will do this instead of doing promos and vignettes. He will actually bring in good talent from the outside, which Viva Vaughn is a good talent from the West Coast, wrestling primarily right now New Japan Wrestling, their American division. And so, truthfully, this was actually a good match overall. I think Vaughn had some good moves in there, and she was not able to show off all of her arsenal because the match slate was just way too short. Excuse me, I apologize. I'm trying not to sneeze again here. She hit a running knee followed by Mayday, but she decided to finish the opponent. She decided to finish Viva Vaughn with a Storm Zero to add insult to injury. Some of the highlights of this thing: May's headbutt. These are some of the notes I took. May's headbutt looked really legit. I mean, that was really good. Some of the things that I thought she should have worked on, she's worked on really well. The headbutt sold out really legit. The one thing that did happen is she did something kind of weird during the break where she was lying down and writhing around on the mat. But if I don't miss my guess, when I saw the video on that, if you remember Toni Storm's dramatics in the ring, especially when she wins or something like that, she can be over dramatic and overselling. My thoughts on that was probably that Mariah May was trying to mock that moment, and so there was a lot of question on Twitter about it. Of course, I don't stay too much on Facebook, but there was a lot of questions on Twitter about what is this going on here? Is she okay? Blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking to my mind that since Toni Storm has sort of a flair for the dramatic, especially during matches and after she wins, that this was just Mariah May's way of mocking it, so to speak. And it came across that way to me when I saw the video, but I can understand the concern. So we'll keep an eye out to see what's going on, to see if there was actually something medical. I'll keep an ear to the ground and figure that part out there. But the other highlight of this match is just the way that not Toni Storm, but Mariah May has managed to literally flawlessly go from Toni Storm's sidekick to Mariah May without any real, I mean, it was just like an overnight thing and without any real transition. You didn't see it coming. She developed that character in such a way that it just kind of felt natural. So shout out to that. Obviously, Mariah May picks up the win over Viva Vaughn. I'm going to give that match right there my match of the night so far, because I was not terribly, I mean, if I had to compare that match with a lot of the others. Now, a lot of people are screaming out for Kyle Fletcher and MJF. Kyle Fletcher and MJF did exactly what I expected them to do. MJF, regardless of whether I like his promo style or whether or not I like the apparent MAGA stuff he's doing right now, which, by the way, I do think is funny, but it's not one of those things that fits with AEW too well. They went out and did exactly what I figured they would do. So when I qualify a match of the night, it's usually when somebody does something I didn't see coming, it made sense, it stole the crowd, or it stole the moment. And for this reason right here, I'm just saying that Mariah May and Viva Vaughn, that was I'll say it was one of my matches of the night. I got another one coming up down the road here. It was real short and sweet as well, but I think it told the message and made the point. But anyway, moving forward here, we had the Bounty Hunter. Oh, my God. Keith Lee versus Shibata. And Shibata is definitely an up-and-comer. Some of the highlights of this thing right here, Tony, we got to have a conversation about this. For people who say that I don't criticize AEW's booking and their programming sometimes, the mere fact that Chris Jericho got his own entrance and was in no way, shape, or form in a match, yeah, that's a heel thing to do, but this whole thing of finding spots for people to kill shows, it's got to stop. We can go 1 week without Orange Cassidy. We can go 1 week without Chris Jericho. We for damn sure can go 1 week without Britt Baker. All right? That's just a fact. But anyway, it was a good heel move, but at the same time, it kind of detracts from the match. And it's kind of one of those things where you're actually physically looking at the audience and saying, we know you don't like to see him, but we're going to stick him out there anyway. That's bad business, Tony. That's just bad business. And with everything we got going on right now, having bad business is not a good idea. So I just figured I'd throw that out there. I kind of figured out what Keith Lee's gimmick is, I think. But his pants pulled up over his belly button was absolutely fucking hilarious. And even though Shibata isn't very big, he's somehow convincing when he no-sells. Okay? Somehow he magically sells the idea that he no-sells. And while I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with that, if this is Tony trying to lean into the criticism of AEW, I mean, hey, you can flat-ass go for that any day, anytime, anywhere. Lean into that shit. I think we've been saying that for quite a while now. If you're gonna troll the people who are trolling you, lean into it. That would be the only other possible explanation for having Chris Jericho have his own entrance with absolutely no match, no spot, no segment, no nothing. that's just one thing that bugged the shit out of me, but I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like gang, comment gang, share gang. Next week we're going to start talking about donations here, because once I get this stream good enough, it would be appreciated if you would support your content creators. But that's neither here nor there. The bounty hunter and the wrestler did better this week when Keith took on Shibata, who is an ally of Samoa Joe and Hook during the feud with Chris Jericho and the Learning Tree. Former ROH Pure Champion was beginning to show signs of life. As he returned, he absorbed all of Keith's strikes and laid him out with one forearm. He took control and was able to make the Bad Apple tap out with the armbar. The Learning Tree then hits the ring. And we're back to the 3-on-1 beatdown, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like, one-eyed Hook comes running down the ramp, clears the ring out, etc., etc., etc. And, of course, they got out of Dodge so fast, Chris Jericho left the belt laying there, the title, the belt, whichever one makes you feel good. But Shibata Bread was over Keith all day long, and at least the win was the win, was the win, was the win. And he got it. Anyway, after that, we move into, oh my God. Oh boy. Considering I was literally just talking about this a couple of minutes ago, Orange Cassidy teams up with Dax Hardwood and Cash Wheeler, and the only thing I can figure at this point is that Dax and Wheeler literally live in Asheville, North Carolina, so it was like, even in bad weather, they probably could have gotten to Winston-Salem in about 3.5 hours, so they were there. So we have an impromptu trios match between Orange Cassidy, Dax Hardwood, and Cash Wheeler, and the team that beat the conglomeration last week, Roderick Strong, the Beast Mortos, and Roosh. I love doing that one. Roosh. And later on, Tony Khan would actually call this team OCFTR. Which was the absolute response from Twitter. Strong started to team out and found himself being double teamed by OC and FTR. It wasn't until after the break that the heels finally got to take over. 6 competitors to follow. There was a lot going on, but they did a good job making it easy to keep track of everything. The Kingdom interfered with the crowd while, oh boy, this just gets crazier and crazier. While the ref was distracted and took out Hardwood, so it was more like a 3-on-2 handicap match during the break. The babyfaces did make a comeback, and with both teams pulling out all the stops, FTR were able to hit their finisher and pick up the win, much to the dismay of one Don Callis. Adam Page gave us a brief interview promising to have his revenge on Swerve Strickland, and then we saw a sit-down interview with Jim Ross and Swerve before the match. OC's Tornado DDT to Strong was really good, I gotta say that, but I'm not 100% sure it was as good as the one he hit on Mortos, because he did like 3 revolutions there. A lot of people are down on Orange Cassidy. I am down on using him every single show. No. A couple times a month, I'm good with that. He's a good, welcome distraction. But he's not a top guy. And he never will be a top guy. Tony, in all seriousness, we got to start talking about this. This is a conversation you need to start having with the fans, because you need to explain yourself on how in the world it is that we got to see these guys every week. And once Britt Baker gets off of suspension, does that mean we're going to see her every week too? Because you know what? I'll pass on that too. But that was neither here nor there. FTR and OC defeated Strong and Mortos. And following that, we had what I considered to be my other match of the night, because finally, after a year of waiting, the Brick House herself, who was also, she also lives in North Carolina. So, I mean, it was easy for her to run across to Winston-Salem. She's within a couple of hours from where she lives to Winston-Salem. So it was an easier crawl across. And shout out to Tracy Myers and AML for providing some of the enhancement talent. You knew I was going to shout you out, Tracy. I know you're not watching right now. But your talent looked absolutely good. I'm not 100% sure who else Tony got for that second person. Maybe you can help me out maybe you can pop me a message or a FaceTime or something like that and let me know who that was. But yeah, Tracy, AML showed up. AML was in the house. AML was represented live on AEW. So basically, Camille was given a sort of an exhibition handicap. For those of you who don't know, Camilla is a very, very tall woman and a very, very strong woman who could have easily made it in any division. We're thankful that she chose AEW. But she is definitely the Brick House. And, of course, I said in a tweet last night that I thought the Durham Bulls ought to rename themselves to the Durham Brick Houses. That was such a good match. It was really a squash match that lasted 4 or 5 minutes, but you know, shout out to Camille in a 2-on-1 handicap match for her debut live on AEW. It was beautiful to see. Camille, you're still doing beautiful work. I'm glad to see that you stayed in an organization that would let you work like you did in the NWA, because I was an absolute fan of yours in the NWA. So I'm going to definitely be a fan of yours here in AEW. But yeah, I mean, it was a squash win. I mean, it was put there to make her look tough. It really did it. The people who were the enhancement talent, I don't use the word jobbers, because that's just like, that's pretty close to using like an epitaph, so to speak, an epithet, when it comes to wrestlers, because jobbers suggest that they're in there simply to lose. And maybe back in the old days, that's kind of how it was. We just throw, hey, we got this guy out of the Waffle House, we can throw him in. Yeah, it was like that. But these days we use them, we call them enhancement talent, because not only are they there to lose, which we know that, but they're there to make the person whipping their ass look reasonably good. And so, for that much, I know George South does the training down there, I think in Salisbury or something like that. But Tracy Myers, once again, thanks for sending some quality talent there for Camille. And anyway, as we all know, the match was pretty much over with at that point. As soon as it started, it was over before it ever started. But yeah, Camille picked up an easy win. And then after that, we get the CEO in the ring talking about some cool stuff there. Just being CEO. And, you know, once again, shout out to Mercedes Moné, because she got this heel thing going on perfectly. I didn't think, because, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of her run in WWE was babyface, but the heel runs that they gave her were like schoolgirl crush heel runs, you know? It's like, oh, I'm just going to do this to you, and then you're going to be very upset, and the crowd's going to boo. No. So when AEW does heel work, they do legit heel work, which means that the person's actually able to be themselves. So Mercedes Moné gets up there, cuts a promo, and she's interrupted by Britt Baker via live satellite, who is no longer suspended, etc., etc., etc. And they hype up the match at All In, which frankly, I'm just really hoping that Britt Baker does work this match, and she doesn't. If Britt Baker works that match and Mercedes Moné works that match, that one right there has an opportunity to steal the show. So I just thought I'd throw that out there for All In, August 25th, live on pay-per-view. And just like that, we're sitting here on the main event. Whew. And by the way, y'all, Dynamite flowed. When I say Dynamite flowed, 1 minute it was 8 o'clock and the next minute it was 9:45. So people ask me why I watch AEW a lot more than I do WWE. It's for that reason alone. Like, anybody will tell you right away, you started off at 8 o'clock, and when you blinked, it was like 9:45. The main event was kicking. I think it was 9:40 when the main event kicked in. Could be that. But yeah, what a main event we did have this week. I want to take a moment and just kind of let that one sink in and let it kind of, just feel you. Feel your senses a little bit. Because we had Bryan Danielson. He's coming down the twilight of his career. Versus Jeff Jarrett, who you would think is in the twilight of his career already, but I gotta say, every time I say give Jeff Jarrett less TV time, he comes out with a motherfucking match just like this, and then you remember why AEW gives him the TV time that they do give him. And I realize there were some people, I watched a lot of reviews, and some people were really just, why it's 2024. Why are Chris Jericho and Jeff Jarrett still on my television? I'm going to explain that one to you. Now, Jericho, I got no answer for. I have zero answer for Chris Jericho. I'm not even going to try to answer for Chris Jericho. Because I'm with you. I'm in the boat, and I'm pulling my weight rowing. Why is Chris Jericho in 2024 still on my television and not in commentating? But, AEW has been hyping this match the whole week. Then on top of that, you got Ricky Steamboat there. Which, by the way, you guys should have turned his mic up a little bit. You had, okay, guys, you got to understand the venue. And I will get into the main event here in just a minute. But I really wanted to talk about this venue for a minute. This venue is in an area that I myself attended many an NWA show as a child. Winston-Salem, Greensboro, and Charlotte, North Carolina are what are still considered hallowed territory ground. NWA went down to the Lawrence Joe Coliseum, and they almost sold out. And there isn't a single person on an NWA show that most modern fans can name. And when I say that, I literally mean that. I think maybe they're going to look up and say EC3. And of course, they'll recognize Billy Corgan. But Winston-Salem itself, the old Winston-Salem Coliseum, which literally sits in the same area as the Lawrence Joel, that's a local bone of contention with a lot of people for whatever reason. But Winston-Salem itself, when it comes to old territorial wrestling like your NWAs, your WCWs, and to say right now, I think GCW could come there and have a hell of a show. I think they could sell 1,500, 2,000 seats in the Coliseum. Winston-Salem itself is hallowed ground for professional wrestling. Now, it's not necessarily a hotbed of sports entertainment, but it is a hallowed ground for professional wrestling. So you had Ricky Steamboat there, and you had, Jeff Jarrett, names that are well known, very synonymous in the Mid-Atlantic region. If you don't know who Ricky Steamboat is and you claim to be from North Carolina and you've been here longer than 30 years, you hadn't been paying attention. Same thing with Jeff Jarrett. So the nostalgia behind this match alone really worked it. Bryan Danielson gets his introduction. He's starting down the ring, and just out of nowhere, Jeff Jarrett comes back and smacks him in the back of the head with a guitar. Karen and whoever that other guy is, I have no earthly idea who that is. But it's just those little things. It really is. It's those little things that Jeff Jarrett does that keeps him on television time. Because if you notice, Karen was down there trying to slow him down. He pushed her out of the way, told her to go back in the back. That's a heel thing. but it's also very territorial. That was a territory thing, because that's how they used to treat the valets when the shit was about to go down. Okay? So when the shit was about to go down, he pushes her back a little bit and says, basically, get your ass in the back. Get out of this. And he beats him all the way down beats him down the ramp. So, I mean, that required, I could have done that. That doesn't require a particular brand of athleticism. But boy, it's lit a fire under that crowd that you just couldn't believe, and the crowd was already hot. And they went to a next level hot. And I don't think it was for Bryan Danielson. I think part of it was. I'm not going to deny his star quality. And of course, everybody in the arena should know who he is because he performed as Bryan Daniel, or Daniel Bryan, with WWE in the same building. So everybody knows him, so it's not a problem. But it's those little things that Jeff Jarrett does, the little things that you don't look at. The little things that are the things that you just don't pick up on as readily. You're like, well, I never watched Jeff Jarrett on my television. That's why. That's why. Every time I hear that question, that's why. Just that one little thing of shoving Karen just a little bit and telling her to get her ass in the back, that stirred the crowd up right there by itself. And they were already hot. But they went to a next level hot. Because he pulled out every little trick in the book to raise this crowd up and carry his own part of the weight in the ring. So he attacks him. Yeah, we went through that part of it. They fought into the crowd and on the concourse in the back. Yeah, he ain't afraid to go in the back. This was an overall entertaining match. But the reality of it is, then we've got to dial it back down to reality. And Jeff Jarrett is probably my age or older. And Bryan Danielson is younger than me. Not quite as old, but definitely beat up. So eventually we got to get back to life, back to reality. With a little help from, they battle back and forth and so on and so forth, but with a little help from the chair, Bryan Danielson hits his Bushido knee for the win. Both men, allies. The end of that match was something to behold, too. By the way, I'm sorry, I just glazed right over it. Bryan Danielson did one hell of a sell on the low blow, so I didn't want to glaze over that part of it. But the opening of the match was probably the most important part, and some of the little heel stuff that Jeff Jarrett did to maintain his weight while making Bryan look really, really good and making Bryan look really, really tough. All of that came together, but at the end of the match, they are still friends. The adrenaline pipes down, they shake hands, and embrace in a hug, which is a true sign of quality sportsmanship. And not to mention it got a really good pop out of the crowd, and they sent everybody home happy. Overall the show itself, I was still in the 8 as far as the ratings for it. If I were to give it a rating, I knock 2 points off automatically when I see Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho on the same show. I knock 3 points off if I see Britt Baker actually in the building trying to do stuff. So if I see all 3 of those in there, you start off with a 7. Because it's got to go up from there. But Jeff Jarrett carried the night really well. Actually, I'm still on my match of the night being Mariah May and Viva Vaughn, and my secondary match of the night being Camille's introduction, because she definitely came in there looking hot. And Tracy, thank you very much, Pro Wrestling. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Tracy has good talent there at AML, and it's very good if you're in the Winston-Salem area and you want a really cheap, inexpensive, very entertaining wrestling venue with some names you're going to recognize, like Cedric Alexander. I think QT Marshall wrestles in that, and he occasionally gets some mid-card well-known wrestlers for his show too. I think Rey Mysterio's even wrestled once way back in the day. So AML is a good show to check out. Plus, everything you do for them happens to be a fundraiser for whatever group they're in. They do high school fundraisers with their wrestling. They do all kinds of fundraisers. They are an awesome group to check out. So if you're in the Winston-Salem area, if you're in the Piedmont Triad region, and you're looking for some really good entertaining wrestling, Tracy Myers AML Wrestling is the way to go. They have good storylines, and they do try to feed into their storylines, and they try to develop the show as sort of a homogeneous show right there just for those people. You'll enjoy it. I enjoy it. Everybody there locally, he typically sells out day one, day two tops. And WrestleCade is also Tracy Myers. It's going to be the end of November, first day of December, where myself and the Covalent TV will be live interviewing wrestlers all over the place. There's like 74 of them that are on my docket. I don't know if I'm going to get through 74 wrestlers at one time without it just being janky and shitty looking. So I'm probably going to hold it to about 30, but I've got a list of 74 wrestlers that want to do an interview. So be on the lookout for about 30 short interviews, what we call flower shop moments. And I'm going to be using the flower shop moments during the lives to accentuate the wrestler, because I'm going to be interviewing some big names. I'm going to save that for when we get closer to November, but I am excited about WrestleCade in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. If you haven't yet, look up the venue, look up the attendance, look up everything. They're going to have 9,000 to 12,000 people in the Benton Convention Center for a wrestling event, and TNA is going to do a live event at WrestleCade as well. That ticket is in addition to, though. It's an extra ticket. But TNA is going to do a live pay-per-view from WrestleCade. We're going to be live. We're going to be in the media for TNA. We're going to be in the media for AML. We're going to be in the media for WrestleCade. And I will say this right now, 4 of my interviews you're definitely going to want to see. So from there, just, you know, it's awesome. But anyway, we are at the end of the review. Wow, 23 viewers. Thank you very much, everybody. Wow, that's a good number. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we're going to be live Saturday night after Collision. I'm going to be covering Collision, also SmackDown and Dynamite. I've got to cover SmackDown. The Tribal Chief's coming in. I know our compatriots over at the Covalent TV are going to be doing it live after the show. I'm going to be doing it Saturday at 10 with Collision. Going to be a little bit of a long stream, but it'll be okay. But anyway, guys, thanks for showing up. Thanks for being a part of the show, and thanks for the messages, Mike Johnson and Pro Wrestling. Thank you very much. And yeah, don't forget, like, comment, share, and we'll see you on Saturday night. Have a good night.